Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Check the post of Husker Nation. Brought to you by Nebraska Spine Hospital. I want to dedicate today's episode of the Chronicles, to my former defensive line coach, John Blake. Coach Blake recently passed away of a heart attack. Okay, now to me, he was obviously my coach. He was also, easy for me to say, a mentor and a friend. Now, he played for the University of Oklahoma from 1979 to 1982, and Coach Blake always had all sorts of stories, and I'll never forget one day, it was in my junior, senior year. He paused, we were watching film, and he just paused the film out of nowhere. He goes, "You want to hear a funny story about your old coach?" "Yeah, sure, why not, Coach?" And so he was talking about playing against Dave Remington and Dean Steinkuhler. It was a Big 8 championship game, Nebraska versus Oklahoma, which was almost always for the Big 8 championship. And he talked about how taking on them, they were Mack trucks. Let me tell you, they were freaks. They were Mack trucks. I can't imitate him, okay? Nobody can do that justice. But he was talking about how difficult it was to take on that double team. Two of the best ever, not just in Nebraska football history, but college football history, taking on that double team on the power plays and whatnot. And his senior year, they were getting ready to play against Nebraska. Title on the line, Steinkuhler, Remington. Coach Blake was the nose guard. And he's having issues with his cleats at the beginning of the game, like going into the game in warm-ups. And he's trying to get them switched and fixed, and all of a sudden the game's ready to start. He's like, "I'll just get through the first series and then I'll switch them." First play of the game, sure enough, Steinkuhler, Remington, double team, boom. In his words, they drove him back just a little bit, but he came right out of his cleats. His one foot came right out. The other cleat literally got torn in half. So he had to come out of the game. Couldn't even not only get through the first series, couldn't get through the first play. Now, Coach Blake was a stud, all right? So it was more on the cleats than it was anything else, plus the two he was going against were pretty ridiculous. He had to come out, couldn't even get through the first play, let alone the first series, to get new cleats. But anyways, it was just a funny story that he shared, and he would always share stuff like that. But he coached, he played at Oklahoma. He also coached college football and professional football for 20 years. He was actually a two-time Super Bowl champion with the Dallas Cowboys in the early to mid-90s. He also coached the Oklahoma Sooners, the head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners from 1996 to 1998. Now, in 2000, Bob Stoops won the national championship at Oklahoma. Right? He won it, but I've always thought he did it with Coach John Blake's players that he recruited. And most recently, he coached the Buffalo Bills defensive line in 2016. Now, there's a whole bunch of things I think of when I think of Coach Blake. But the five that came to my head in no particular order, okay? And I'll just start with being a great recruiter. I'm not the first to put this out there. I'm not the first to talk about this. It's very well known. But I'm going to put it out there as well, and then I'll move on to some of the other things that maybe haven't been chatted about. He's a great recruiter. In 2005 alone, as an example, he brought in Ndamukong Suh, Marlon Lucky, who was the number 2 recruit in the country, Philip Dillard, and Barry Turner, who was a freshman All-American after his freshman season. Now, he out-recruited the likes of Pete Carroll, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, where Barry Turner was actually from. And you got to keep in mind, back then, Tennessee was still pretty good. He also brought in later on down the road Ola DeGundero, Brandon Jackson, and Andre Jones. Now, the next thing that came to my mind, he's a great motivator. Being a great recruiter and a great motivator sometimes tend to go hand to hand, but nobody ever got me more motivated than John Blake. All right, there's a reason guys wanted to come play where he was coaching, and once they got there, they loved playing for him while they were there, and he was coaching them. All right, the next thing, he was a genuine human being. All right, now a lot of guys are really good recruiters. A lot of coaches are really good recruiters, and when you get on campus, if you play well, man, they're your best friend, they're your best bud. But if you don't start to play as well, I've seen coaches turn on players time and time again. They'll rip into them like a monkey on a cupcake. Sometimes they'll walk by them in the hallway, completely ignore them, like a hallway, like you saw me, but you completely ignore the guy. Or sometimes a text and a call, all of a sudden the coach's phone doesn't work. I would have players come to me and be like, "Hey man, I can't even talk to my position coach." So I'd go and I'd try to talk to the position coaches on their behalf, to try to, mend fences, but just build a little bit of a rapport, relationship. I never one time ever had any player come to me and say anything like that about Coach Blake. I always knew I could talk to him about anything, not just football. He would listen and give me his honest thoughts without faking or just trying to rush through the conversation, all right? Both him and my high school coach were in my wedding. Coach Blake and Coach Hull was my high school coach. And they're lively personalities. I warned Angie. I said, they're in the wedding. They're going to be around each other. They're going to have some fun, just to warn you. And they did. They had a lot of fun. It was all good fun. In fact, they started calling themselves Salt and Pepper, not the old music duo from the 90s, but Salt and Pepper. You can probably figure out why they did that. But Coach Blake and I, ever since I left Nebraska, 06, 07, whenever that was, 80,000 years ago, my kids still call me a dinosaur, so that always makes me feel young. But we kept in touch 3, 4, 5 times a year. You know, if I was struggling with something, a lot of times he'd reach out to me. If he was having something going on, I'd reach out to him. But we did keep in contact 3, 4, 5 times a year. I'll be honest with you, in person, I could usually understand Coach Blake. He talked really, really fast, a lot of energy. So sometimes it was hard to understand him on the phone. I'll never forget. I learned some new words from him. Mandinka. I had no idea what a mandinka was. I honestly don't know if mandinka is a real word. I've never really looked it up. But he's like, we need some freaks on the deal. We need freaks up there. We need some mandinkas. Like, what's a mandinka? He's like, it's a freak that's going to get after the ball and just destroy the a mandinka. Like, all right, I like that word. Obviously, I've remembered it ever since. But we did recently just speak as well. All right, and he was happy. And so we did recently speak, and he was happy. Now, the next thing that comes to my mind, and this may not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, it may be one of those things you had to be there to get it type deal. I don't know, but I'm going to put it out there anyways because it's always resonated with me. And it's the phrase, what you call hell, I call home. Maybe not PC. I don't know if the paper's going to like it, but what you call hell, I call home. Now, I've talked in the past about how Bill Callahan came in and tried to decimate the walk-on program. There was 180 players on the team when he first got there, and I was there. And he was used to 53. So he put us through the 2 weeks of hell. And I've described what this is in the past. I've described what it was like. It was hell. It was insane. And for me to say something is insane and is kind of like hell, you know, I will never jump out of an airplane because I'd rather puke into a garbage can because I'm working out so hard. That's me jumping out of an airplane. Me bent over on the ground, barely able to breathe. I'll never climb Mount Everest. That's what I love. So I'm not going to belabor the point because I have talked about it in the past, but it was kind of insane. And for me to say that actually said something. So Coach Blake came up with this phrase, what you call hell, I call home. And the idea behind this phrase was what you think is impossible, I think is doable. What you think is ridiculous, I think is reasonable. When you want to give up, I say let's do one more. When you think the door's shut, I kick down the door. When you're done puking and almost passed out again, we say get up and let's go again. It was the idea that the tougher and harder it gets, that when you reach a limit you've never been to before, when you reach a point that you think you're in hell, that's normal for us. That's our comfort zone because what you call hell, we call home. And that's something that's resonated with me, honestly, to this day. Not just on the football field, but off. On the football field, there's days you practice when it's 100 degrees, it's 95% humidity, back when you could do 2-a-days. I mean, I'll never forget with the Rams, they came on the radio one day and they're like, you got to keep your dogs inside. It's not safe to be outside. We're out there in full pad scrimmaging. So that was something I always kept in the back of my mind. When you talk about life, all right, in general, life can beat you down. Nobody should understand that better than anybody who's lived through 2020. For me personally, there was a 3-year span where I did nothing but rehab. I had 6 knee surgeries. Things just happened, boom after boom after boom after boom. Every day for 3 years, I did nothing but rehab every morning, trying to get back into the game and get back into the NFL. And I'll be honest with you, I reached a point where it wasn't a lot of fun. And that mantra, what you call hell, I call home, helped get me through that. And so anyways, that's something I've carried with me both on and off the field since. And here's one other thing I think of when I think of Coach Blake. There were always players in his office, all right? Not just studying film, because they were studying film, but studying for class, studying for an exam, just hanging around, just wanting to be around him. I can't remember any other coach on that staff that I could say that about. Now, I could be wrong, but when you can go in there any day of the week, just about any time of the day, and you can find players in there studying film, studying for school, or just wanting to hang out with the coach and be around the guy while he's doing his work, just being around him, that tells you just about all you need to know. I want to say thank you. I know he's up there right now. I want to say thank you, Coach Blake, for the impact you had on me, not just on the field, but off the field. For keeping in touch over the years, for everything. I hope I can have an impact, whether it's the kids I coach, whether if I potentially coach upwards of higher levels one day, I don't know. I hope I could have an impact on someone the way you had an impact on me. So thank you. Until next time, Husker Nation, go big red and always remember to throw the bones.
Thanks again to our sponsor, Nebraska Spine Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, when it's your spine, you do not want to mess around, and experience matters. That's why you can trust the experts at Nebraska Spine Hospital, the region's only spine-specific hospital. They are the best at what they do.